Hi, we're going to start now, and this uh, presentation is being recorded, and thank you for coming. So, uh, I'm going to start off by sharing the screen with my presentation. Okay. Okay. Is it, okay, Cantor Cohen, can you see the complete screen now? Oh, wait a second. I need to make full screen. I need to do,
Play from start. If you push, okay, that works too.
there we go.
If you push
Okay.
play from start in the left, uh, that's fine.
Oh, here it is. There we
Yeah,
go.
yeah, yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay,
That's good. That's good.
okay. So, the shofar. So, the first one is a ram's horn. This second one is a much longer shofar, and it's from the animal called a kudu, Kudu. And the shofar was first sounded in the Holy Temple in Solomon's Temple, going way, way back. And also, the shofar was sounded um, when Joshua defeated his enemies, the enemies of the Israelites, at Jericho. And there's pictures of trumpets, but shofarot also were played at the same time. Here's a medieval picture of the shofar, and you can see it's curved. All shofars are curved. And the reason why, the rabbis explain, is that during the Yomim Norim, the high holidays, we are supposed to be bent over in being humble supplication. And the shofar is sounded has been sounded in many, many different times throughout history. And in modern history, every time a new president of Israel is inaugurated, and there is Isaac Herzog, the latest president of Israel, the shofar is sounded. So here we go. And you can see all the different ways that the shofar has been sounded over the years to announce a new moon, to start a war, a battle, or to announce a victory. It's used in processions as musical accompaniment. And of course, as I mentioned, at the temple in Jerusalem with trumpets. During Slichot in Jerusalem, it is sounded in modern times on fast days, on Jubilee years. During the days of Joshua to help capture Jericho, which we talked about, and to introduce Shabbat in temple and Talmudic times, and then number 10, to announce the inauguration of a new president. But the shofar is usually not sounded for non-religious purposes. The shofar cannot be made from a cow horn, except in the most rare exception, if one cannot be procured from another animal, such as a sheep or a goat. Now, the reason for this is to do with the unholy experience the Israelites created by producing the golden calf while Moshe was receiving the tablets from God. So most anything made from a cow is not used by observant Jews during the high holidays as a symbol of piety, including the shofar. And of course, many Jews will not wear leather during the high holidays, uh, as that's one of the reasons is to do with the cow. Um, and here is a Yemenite gentleman playing the shofar. The person who blows the shofar during services is called the Baal Tikiya, or the Master of the Blasts. It's an honor to be called upon to perform the sacred duty, and before one does it for a service, there are brachot that are said. Now let's get down to business. There are 4 main blasts or calls that are used during prayers on Rosh Hashanah and 1 blast on Yom Kippur, and they're listed below with a description. So after saying the bracha, the shofar can be sounded during the service. The first blast, the most common, is the Tikiya. It's a single long blast. Shavarim is composed of 3 connected wailing sounds. Teruah are a series of 9 short alarm notes. I play them in 3 groups of 3 rather than 4, 4, and 1, just because I think to do with our religion, 3 is a very important grouping. And then the 4th blast, is a long Tikiya, which is called Tikiya Gedolah, a very long blast at the end of the shofar service and at the very end of Yom Kippur. Now the blasts are sounded in combinations during the service, and there's 3 times during a service when the blasts are heard. And so sometimes you'll have like Tikiya and then Shavarim Teruah and so on and so forth. Now Maimonides wrote that the sounding of the shofar is a symbolic wake-up call to mend our ways and repent. Sleepers, wake up from your slumber. Now there are 3 parts to the shofar which are exactly the same as the modern-day brass instrument family. There's the mouthpiece, which you can see there in the photo on the far right. Is that correct? Is everything showing correct on the far right? And then you have the tube, which is basically the long part. And then there's the final exit where the sound comes out, and that's the bell. And that's very similar to the way brass instruments are constructed. Mouthpiece, tubing, and bell. The mouthpiece is the place where the lips touch and vibrate the air. On the shofar, that mouthpiece can be round or oval depending on the style. The tube is the long part of the horn, and on all shofars, and all shofars are curved. Shofarot are not. Actually, could you correct me on that, Cantor? Is it shofarot or shofarim?
Shofarot.
Shofarot. Yes. The shofar is always curved. Always curved. There's no straight shofar allowed. And of course, the bell at the end is where the sound comes out. Okay. So now we're going to go back to, all right, here we go. And now I'm going to do my live presentation. That was just sort of a little bit of info and information. Here's my shofar. And you can see I've got the kotel in the background there. And but I'm on Granville Street, not in Yerushalayim. Now during Elul, I practice the calls each day for a couple minutes or during the morning minyan. The breath that goes through has to be solid to sound the calls really well. So you can practice breathing for 8 beats, holding the breath in for 8 beats, then holding it for 8 beats, and then releasing it for 8 beats. Let's do that right now. So let's breathe in slowly for 8 beats. Here we go. Hold it. Out. Good. And you'd want to do that a few times. And I will make this page that I have here available to everybody who wants it. The next is the warm-up, is to get the blood flowing in the lips, okay? And I do a horse flap buzz with my lips for a minute. Okay, here goes. Can you do that? And it tickles a little bit. Okay, now next, what I'll do is do a more intense buzz, like a loud bee. So I'm going from being a horse to a bee, and I'm doing this. So I'm making my embouchure and I'm tensing enough around my mouth. So
I
the
can lie. This
lips.
is where you lose me.
Okay. So we're going to do a less at the end. Everybody's going to get to practice. Okay. So that's what I do next. Now the embouchure. This is the setting of the soft tissues around the mouth between the teeth and the mouthpiece. Should have firm corners and slightly firm middle. So let's try that again. Little firm corners. And are quite an intense uh, airstream. And both lips should be sort of pressing down on each other a little bit. Okay, so we'll go on to the next. We'll go into the next section here now, and that's there are two positions on the embouchure that are used to play correctly. Both are fine. First, the center of the lip. That's where the lips are the thickest, and off to the side where the lips are the thinnest. I use the side position on my right side because I have a very full lip and my mouthpiece on the shofar is small and oval, as you can see. And so you need to experiment to see which gets you the best sound consistently. And consistency is the most important part of performing on a wind instrument. And we'll call this a brass instrument, even though it's a horn instrument. It's a horn. Okay. So now people who are brass players, especially trumpet players, they tend to be able to play better in the middle because they are used to putting their lips together for a small mouthpiece. But I'm used to a big mouthpiece for a trombone, and you'll see how poor this is. I won't be able to get anything out of it. Nothing. Okay. But as soon as I put it on the side, I don't have a problem. Okay. So try to experiment and see how you can do. Now I'm using a ram's horn, and this length is about 14 inches from the beginning to the end. And I just learned yesterday from a YouTube video is that the original ram's horn is C-shaped, like this. But in order to get it this shape, what they do is they put it in a hot oil bath for a number of hours, and then they bend it out like this. So I didn't know that. So that's interesting. Now, the horn of a kudu can be up to 4 times longer. It can be over 4 feet long for the long ones. And the pitch should sound lower because when you have a tube and it's longer, the pitch, the harmonic, the primary harmonic, the lowest harmonic is going to be lower the longer it gets. But on a kudu, the players are playing on a higher bugle note. So on this instrument, I'm playing on the absolute lowest note. But on the kudu, they're playing, that's the second harmonic. They're playing on the third or maybe even the fourth harmonic in order for it to get that sound. Okay, otherwise they would sound like a tuba. Well, actually a 4-foot kudu is about the same length as a trumpet. Okay, so yeah, the kudu is using the harmonics like a bugler. Now I hold the shofar parallel to the ground because if this oval mouthpiece is not in line with my lip and it's off like this, I'm not going to be able to get a sound. It's not very good. Not very good. So I hold this parallel to the ground and 4 fingers in one hand above and the thumb below, right up behind the mouthpiece. So my fingers are, as you can see, about a 1/4 inch below the mouthpiece. And so when I put it up to my face, the fingers are against my lip as sort of as an anchor. So I can't play it very well like this because the air leaks out. So the fingers are just like this, and they're pushing gently against the lip. Okay, and like I said, we'll practice this afterwards. As you can see, the shofar is tapered like all the instruments in the brass family, with the mouthpiece being the narrowest part, and then the tube, as you can see, it gets wider and wider, and finally at the end, where the bell is, the sound comes out, that's the widest. And this conforms with the physics of all the horn instruments like the trumpet, the trombone, the tuba, the euphonium, the cornet. Now, I think I tried this before. I can't get a sound in the middle. So I'm going to play off to the side. Now, let's try the first call now. And you can try this at the same time. Well, I'm going to play it first. This is the call you'll practice the most. The Tikiya is one good loud blast. Start it by taking a relaxed breath in at the same length as the call, which is about 1 to 2 seconds. So your breath wants to be about 1 to 2 seconds, and your teeth are apart in your mouth about a 1/2 inch apart. So you don't want to open up too much, just sort of comfortable. And here's my Tikiya. Now let's all play it together. I'll go 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so let's get into a little bit more detail about how to start the note. Like all brass instruments, the tongue has to come up. You take your breath like this. I'm going to demonstrate first. Take your breath. At the end of the breath, the tongue comes up, in the case of the shofar, behind the lip. So the tongue comes up behind the lip, and it seals the air from coming out. So you're breathing in, and then at the end of the breath, so that no air can escape, your tongue is there. So let's take a breath, and we're just going to finish the breath by sealing the air off with the tongue. Okay, 1, 2, 3, breathe. And you're not going to play. Okay. And now to play, all you're going to do, so the air pressure is behind the tongue. So you take your breath, the end of the breath, the tongue comes up behind the lip, and there's air pressure behind there. So right now I'm taking the breath in, I'm stopping it with the tongue. And to release the air, I just pull the tongue back and away. Let's try that. I'll go 1, 2, 3, breathe. 1, 2, 3. So just say ta, T-A-H. 1, 2, 3. Now let's try it with the shofar. 1, 2, 3. Okay, so if you have an oval mouthpiece, remember, it has to be parallel to the alignment of the lips. Otherwise, you're not going to get a good sound. Now, just to do with a little bit more technique, don't force, don't puff the cheeks or your lips out when you're playing. So everything needs to be firm. Also, the sound should not waver or shake, and the pitch should not sag as the sound is played. Listen. I'm going to let it sag now, and you'll hear the wrong way. And what's happening there is the sound is the air is not continuing the intensity. The air needs to stay intense. You need, for every shofar, you need to find the center of the pitch. So mine is this tone. La, la. There it is, okay? Now your shofar might be different because it might be a different length. Even 1 millimeter difference can make a change of a percent of a semitone in the shofar. So I'm going to play now where the note is not centered, and you'll hear it doesn't. Here's a centered note, and the sound is pure and really live. Not that way. But now I'm going to pitch it, and I'm going to pitch it too low, and you'll hear the sound isn't right. You hear that? The sound shakes and whatever, because I'm not matching all the parts of the lip and the intensity of the air with what the tube wants. The tube wants the sound. Can you hear that? La, la, la. That's the same pitch. La, la, la. La, la, la. That's the pitch of my horn. I bet you didn't know that little trick. So if I'm playing cold, the shofar, and I'm up on the bima, and I haven't played for 10-15 minutes, I will just do that. And nobody can hear it, but I know now what pitch is going to be expected to come out the other end. Now that was a low pitch that shook, and now I'm going to try a high pitch, and you'll see it won't be good either. La. It's just terrible. Okay, so the center is where the sound is the purest. Each shofar will have its own unique pitch based on the length of the instrument. The longer the shofar, the lower the pitch. Now practice this Tikiya call many times on your own, and stop if you feel fatigue. Stay relaxed. Try to imagine a great shofar sound in your head before you play. Visualize yourself being successful. Take a break every couple minutes for at least another 2 minutes, as rest is as important as playing and is part of your practice. Now let's practice Shavarim. This call is in 3 wails. It's a wailing sound from lower to higher, all in one breath, but the tongue starts each wail. So I'm actually starting it by sagging on that note, which of course is what I mentioned just before you don't want to do for your Tikiya. But for the wail, for the Shavarim, you want to start it there. Now the Lubavitch and some other Hasidim, they do that's a crying sound. So they have a different kind of wail. And you very rarely hear it. I heard one, I went on about 20 different YouTube videos yesterday, I heard one person do it. Okay, so you're starting the Shavarim by sagging on the note a little bit with a less intense airstream, and then really move the air faster and more intensely to slide up to the more normal pitch. Now for musicians, this translates into starting about a fourth lower. So try that and see if you can sag right from the beginning and then slide up. Okay, so we'll perfect that later. And remember, finding the home pitch on your shofar, the center, is where you're going to get the purest sound. And you're not going to be able to play in tune with another shofar, but that's why when we all play together, we sound even scarier than a whole troop of bagpipers. Now we're going to go to the third call, which is Teruah. And Teruah is a series of 9 short alarm blasts. Each one started with the tongue, but all in one breath. So I do da 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 da, which is 3 sets of 3. And that's got sort of a special meaning because you have 3 inside a big 3. You have 3 little 3s inside of a big 3, as opposed to the other way of doing 9 is 4, 4, and 1. Da 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 da. But to me, that's not so symmetrical, not so Jewish. Okay. So I'm using the tongue for each one of those. Okay, and the final call is called Tikiya Gedolah, long, large blast, which is the longest and loudest blast used at the conclusion of the shofar service on Rosh Hashanah and the final part of the Yom Kippur service before Havdalah. You stay relaxed, take in a little bit more air than usual, and hold it out for as long as possible. Don't pass out. Okay, I could go a little longer. So the concept there is this. You blow up a balloon. When you blow up a balloon, you know how to let the air out so it makes a squeaky noise. And when we do that, when we blow up a balloon and we let the air out where it makes a squeak, it goes, as the balloon empties, what happens? The pitch goes down. And it does that. But our lungs would do the same thing if we didn't continue pushing from our muscles around our chest and our abdomen. Okay? So as we empty, we have to continue more and more intensity. Otherwise, the sound will it'll do that. Okay, so that is the end of that part of the demonstration. There's much symbolism in playing the shofar and in listening to it. Read about it and learn and find out what brings meaning to you. Okay, so I'm just going to give you a few tips now. If the edges of the mouthpiece seem sharp on your shofar, let me see yours, Cantor. That looks sharp. You'll notice that mine is rather rounded looking, the edge. I have shaved it off nicely with some emery cloth. So any of you ladies might have stuff that you use on your fingernails, and actually the horn, the shofar, is the same stuff as our fingernails. So whatever you would use to file your fingernails, you can file the outside edge and the inside edge to make it smoother. Okay, it will still be kosher. Now, just do a little bit at a time, but take off as much as you think so that you don't have this sharp edge. That will help you with your comfort. Now, when shopping for a shofar, if you're going to be looking for one, the best place is in New York City outside of Jerusalem, and try to find a place where there's many of them and try them all out to see which one suits you best. I found mine in a store at in the Catskills in a box with about 20 others about 40 years ago, and I just played every one of them. It was pre-COVID, and the one I chose had the best sound, and that's the one I still use to this day. Now, once you find a good sounding shofar, check to make sure it doesn't have any cracks in it or any holes through to the outside. That would render it unfit or unkosher. And finally, once you get it home, check your shofar and check to make sure that the hole right down the center does not have any little burrs in there from the drill. So they use a drill bit to drill these out, and mine had a burr in there, and I discovered it after years. And so if yours has one, you're going to have to get like a pipe cleaner. Does yours have one, Cantor?
I feel like it does. I don't know if you can see it, but there's definitely something in there.
Okay, they quite often do. So try to see if you can get a pipe cleaner or something, or a coat hanger to get rid of it, and that will make it that will make it sound better. The once the inside of the horn is removed, this sort of pulpy stuff, you're left with this, and the hollow part goes up to about here, about 3/4 of the way, and then they have to drill. The maker has to drill down about 3-4 inches into the shofar, and they have to do it straight, and they have to do it first with a narrow. They have to cut off the tip. They have to drill down with a narrow bit, which is maybe let's just say, I don't know, 1/4 inch, maybe a little less, maybe 3/16, and then they use a little larger one for about an inch, and then they use an even larger one and gouge out the part right at the mouthpiece where it's the biggest. So you want to make sure that that this hole here is not clogged with anything. I've never cleaned mine out. Mine doesn't have a bad smell to it. You might have to go online to see, how to clean them out, but I don't want to soak mine in water or anything. I don't want to screw it up. Okay, so now is the time for questions, and I'm just going to put my full screen on. Okay, so is it just you and me, I think?
Jeff's
No,
here.
I'm still here.
Oh, Jeff, you're still there.
Yeah, just kept my screen off because I had to pull over. Yeah.
Okay, so, okay, do you mind if I call you Shani tonight?
That's totally fine.
Okay, Shani. So ask me any questions you want, either of you, and then we'll get a little lesson and a little demo, okay?
Jeff, feel free to start. Do you have anything?
So first of all, thank you, Gordon. That was really fantastic. And if this is being recorded, it'd be a great thing to refer to if you have notes. Really helpful. So.
Oh, I'm just wondering if I should stop the recording now.
I don't know.
Maybe I'll do that. I'll stop the recording.
That sounds good.
Yeah.